Hello, this is soiledplant and welcome back to my channel. If you read the title, you know what we're doing here. We're going to be potting up some plants as well as talking about the big interview that Meghan and Harry had with Oprah. I understand that this is not everyone's cup of tea, and if, that's not something you're interested in hearing me rant and rave about, talk about, I understand, don't worry about it, but I just find all of this fascinating and I have a few thoughts. I'm actually recording this video on March 8th, which is the Monday after the interview, so everything's still a little fresh, but in case any catastrophe or new information comes out, that is why I am not talking about it. So first, let's talk about the plants real quick. What I plan on potting up is everything you see before you. This is a Marble Queen pothos. I've got some Maranta I need to pot up. I've got Philodendron Brazil, Ficus Tanicki rubber plant, and then some Pothos Enjoy. If I'm feeling extra ranty or if I have the extra stamina tonight, I do have one of my prop boxes over here that I might decide to split up and put into separate pots, but we'll see how it goes. You think there's room for you? He thinks there's room for him, so he might also get in the way during all of this. Nothing like a good cat with a rant. I did make a bunch of notes. I wrote it down on paper. I've got a notebook here, and I've also got some notes on my phone, just so I don't want to make sure I don't forget anything. And I've had a lot of random thoughts about this today. But I just wanted to make sure I hit on everything. But at the same time, I don't want people to think that this is a serious breakdown of all of this, because ultimately, it's the royal family, whatever. Just to ensure that people don't take me seriously, I have taken a crown out of my sort of Halloween decoration costume section, so I will be wearing this for the duration, just for this very occasion. I did actually consider putting on a whole formal dress, or the most formal I have with gloves and stuff, but that seemed a little extra, and for some reason this didn't seem extra to me. So let's pot up and talk about the royals, shall we? I have some of my soil mix over here. I have a video on that. I'll link it in the eye, but generally, it's a standard, soil mix, so pretty much anything you do is going to be close to what I do. And the first one we're going to pot up is this Ficus Tanicki, which is going to be all wrapped up. Ooh, my goodness, look at those roots. She's so impressive with her little roots. All right, but I have to untangle it from the pothos here. So I am going to be reading this from my phone just because I don't want to miss anything or mess it up. But I do want to say at the beginning, quick trigger warning, a lot of this has to do with racism and suicide. So if those are sensitive topics for you, please pass on this video. Those topics will be touched on during the course of this video, so please be advised on that. I want to start off by acknowledging that yes, there are more important things in the world. There's hunger, disease, violence, poverty, natural disasters. Me discussing a frivolous topic does not mean that this is all that matters, and it's just the topic of the day, at least in my case. And I'd like to point out that in this interview and what came out, it's basically going to be us discussing issues of aristocracy, racism, harassment, thoughts of suicide. And all of those topics, separate from being part of the British royal family, are important topics. And it's possible to talk about these issues through this particular lens and not be seen as frivolous. It only seems frivolous because of who it entails, but the topics itself are not frivolous. So ultimately, these topics are not isolated to rich celebrities, and that's why people like to discuss them, ultimately. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. Is it frivolous because of these particular people? Sure. But the topics themselves are important and should be talked about, honestly. I'm just checking them to make sure that there's no signs of rot or anything. And this is going to be going into soil. So what I like to do is make sure that it is extra, extra moist. Lovely word, but yes, it's true. I like to make sure that there is plenty of coco coir in there and less on the aerating stuff, at least for initial pot ups, just because the transition's a little bit easier. I don't know if that's true or not. That's just always something I've done. So for those that are unaware, there was an interview that Harry and Meghan, they just did an interview with Oprah last night. The interview itself took place a few days ago, of course, but they edited and premiered it last night, so Sunday the 7th. And another topic that's brought up a lot with regard to this interview, just the fact that it happened, was, oh, how much did they get paid for this interview? Obviously, they're attention, money seeking, whatever. And they actually didn't get paid at all for the interview. But I will say Oprah and her network, on the other hand, made bank making this interview and selling it to CBS. They ended up making, I think I read, $7 million for this interview, which, holy cow, I hope they got their ad revenue for that. I certainly think a lot of people were watching last night, so I would think that they got their money's worth out of that, but still impressive nonetheless. So in this interview, a lot of different things came up. They talked a lot about the press and how the press has treated them. That kind of goes without surprise to me anyway. I know when I sat down to watch it, I honestly thought it was going to be a fluff piece where like they don't say much of anything and it's all a bunch of hype for nothing. But honestly, there was a lot of information in this interview and a lot of damning information, especially for the British royal family. And when I say the royal family, yes, it means the individuals who are part of the family, you know, like grandma, kids, grandkids, all of that. But it's also, there's also just the company and the institution of the royal family. Yeah, I'll just make sure to split them up as like the British royal family and the institution, just to clarify as I'm talking kind of who I'm referring to. But there were definitely some shots fired at both the family members and the institution itself in this interview. One of the huge takeaways from the interview that the media had and, you know, people on Twitter and stuff were saying is that, like, shock over the fact that the family itself and the institution are racist. Like, yes, of course they're racist. I don't know why people are shocked by that. They are literally like white aristocrats. They're held off from society. They only interact with the public in like stage photo ops. And most of the people they interact with are other people of their station, wealth, class, and race. So the fact that they are concerned about having a person of color in their family, like immediate family, and having grandkids that are going to be, you know, part black, of course they're going to be racist. Like, I don't mean that to dismiss the fact that they're racist. Like, that is a bad thing and we need to fix that and work on that. To say I was shocked to hear that they're racist, I was definitely not shocked to hear that. Meghan and Harry both said that there was a discussion around Archie before he was born. Archie is their son. She is currently pregnant with a daughter, that was revealed during the interview, so that's kind of nice to know. But Archie is their oldest child, and before he was born, there was apparently a discussion between Harry and some of the family members concerned about whether or not he was, like, what complexion he was going to have. And I would say they used the word concern, not, you know, curious. You know, saying, oh, I wonder what he'll look like. Like, that's not what they were implying or insinuating. And the way, you know, Oprah actually prodded Harry about it after hearing about this from Meghan, and he was like, I'm never going to talk about it. Like, nothing. Like, it happened, yes, but you're never going to hear any more from me on that. So that makes me think that it is absolutely true, and maybe, if anything, they're downplaying it to make the family look a little better. He did clarify in a post-interview with Oprah that it was not the Queen who said it, nor her husband, Philip, who is like 99 years old, and then I think the Queen is like 96 or something. But anyway, neither of them were the ones who said it, which to me screams that it has to be either Charles, his father, or William, his brother. It has to be. He also more than alluded to the fact that he is more estranged with his father and his brother than he is with, you know, the Queen, who's his grandmother. So clearly there was a lot of infighting to do with all of this, and it might not have started with this. It might have just been the natural conclusion to things. Yeah, that is the ficus to Nikki. So I will definitely water this in a moment. But for right now, that is her. And I've got another little cup, and I'm going to put the Pothos Enjoy in there. I'm sure it's sad when you have family that you've had forever, you know, they're all you know, and then you become like more estranged as you get older. Like, that hurts, you know, there's no kind of way around it. And it's sad, but at the same time, you know, usually when you drift apart from people, especially, like, imagine this family. There's not a ton of people you can talk to that have similar shared experiences. You would think that you would cling to those people more, but that's the thing with the royal family that is just insane to me. It is that if you're in this situation where every move you make is heavily scrutinized, your entire job is to have a public persona, and you're constantly worried about your public persona, and you know, you've got this like honor, duty, whatever, but at the end of the day, it's mostly about like, it's basically an influencer, but with more scrutiny and more eyeballs and people actually writing articles about what you're doing all the time. There's so few people who understand that experience that you would think it would make them closer, cling to each other, you know, rely on each other all the time. But it seems like every single person in this family has all this infighting and needling and points fingers at each other. Like, I actually made a note about this, and it has to do with the show The Crown. If you watch The Crown, amazing, right? If you don't watch The Crown, watch it. Even if you're not into the royal family, like, you'll kind of understand why there's kind of been a resurgence of interest in the family. It's a really well done show. I will say The Crown is not reality. It's not canon. You know, we can't rely on every step of that story as truth. There's a lot of truth in it, but a lot of it is fabricated. You know, it's a work of fiction. One thing you can take away from the show is the real feelings of being self-centered and self-important. Each member of the family, I would say, has this like selfish approach to literally everything. And they just have a lot of sort of gut-wrenching jealousy when someone is naturally good with the public and just well loved. This sort of thing happened with Diana, which everybody talks about. You know, they compare everything to Diana, and I'm not one of those types necessarily. You know, Kate wore a blue dress and sneezed just like Diana. Like, I don't believe all that stuff. But there is a lot of like warning signs and telltale signs with her that echoed in this, you know, interview and in the stories that they were telling. And The Crown, I think, illustrates this really well, where, you know, in the season 1, when, you know, Queen Elizabeth, she's early in her duties as queen, and she's really, really popular and gaining all of this, you know, press and attention and fanfare, and her sister Margaret would get jealous about that. But then when Margaret would step up and do some things and also become like the darling of the press, Elizabeth got jealous. So when your whole entire world is based on public perception and acceptance of the public and the press, anytime someone is beating you, that's basically like your one thing. That's the only thing you have, versus anyone else in your family is sort of your social societal ranking. So anytime you move or people pull ahead or whatever, they get really defensive about it. So I think that, and this is all me being subjective, like, this is my opinion here, but I think that is absolutely true. I do think there was some echoes of what happened when Diana became part of the equation and when Meghan did. So it's hard to think of it now, but when Meghan was first introduced and they were engaged and did the whole press tour and the wedding and all this stuff, there was a lot of fanfare and sort of positive reactions to all of this. People were saying it was going to be like the new era of the institution, you know, welcoming a person of color into the family. That is a big deal, especially in aristocratic societies. Like, it may not seem like it, and that's stupid and it's outdated, but it's true. So I may not say this correctly, but I'm going to attempt to say it as much as I can in a good way. The Commonwealth. Actually, what is the definition of Commonwealth? Hey Siri, what is the Commonwealth?
Here's what I found.
Commonwealth is a voluntary association of 54 independent and equal countries. I feel like I need to go to Wikipedia for this. Historically, it has been synonymous with republic, a state in which the supreme power is vested in the people, a republic or democratic state. The Commonwealth of Nations is an organization primarily of former territories of the British Empire. Anyway, I feel like that cleared nothing up. But at the same time, the Commonwealth is basically, you know, they will visit as sort of dignitaries or whatever and like go around and kiss babies and take pictures and have parades and meet politicians and all that kind of stuff. If you have a colonizing country where you in the past have colonized dozens of countries that are, you know, not white countries. You know, there's some exceptions to that, you know, Canada and Australia, but a lot of the countries that were under the Commonwealth were black and brown people in these countries. So why would you, if you had a person of color join the family that is so white it's transparent, and that's coming from me, I am also so white I can be transparent. If you have somebody who could be a representative for your family, you know, representation matters. So why would you not take advantage of this? Why would you not embrace her into the family and try to help her succeed and, like, honestly use her to your advantage? You are an archaic system. Like, the British royal family, there is no reason it should exist, aside from, like, a few people who say it, like, helps tourism and whatever. But, like, logically speaking, there is no reason for them to exist, right? So if you're just a facade, I actually wrote this down. For an institution that is desperate to remain relevant and intact and actively tries to promote itself as evolved and one of the people, they seem to have not learned one thing from the most recent decades of mistakes that they've had. Like, when you think of Diana, the People's Princess, Meghan's not doing the same thing she did, of course. It's all different. But at the same time, Meghan was beloved because she represented something. She represented a change. She represented, you know, a certain sector of people who had no place in the British monarchy before this. You know, her son and her future daughter are the first people of color born into this family. Like, that is a big deal. You know, to have someone who, granted, long shot, but a person of color who could potentially be king or queen of England is insanity. Like, that's really cool. And they had so much potential. They had so much potential to make this happen and to sort of bring the monarchy into a new age and, like, reinvent itself and be relevant, you know? And they threw it away because she was popular. She was getting a lot of press. She was the newest, greatest thing. I don't think the press would have been as obsessed with her if she wasn't, like, the newest thing. Granted, she's also divorced, an American, person of color, and an actress on top of all of that. They were giving her attention for those reasons. Ta-da! Pothos, enjoy. Set her right there. These other ones, actually, I have this little Brazil cutting that actually fell out of this pot when I did something stupid and it dumped over and all of the roots broke off. So I put it back into water. Now I'm going to put it in the soil here. Dig a little hole. Just stick her in there. Point all the roots down and bury. The fact that they had basically, you know, $1 million like staring them in the face and they said no thank you. She would have been a huge asset to that family. And the fact that they were willing to let her just, like, get eaten by the press wolves is just insane to me. So these other ones I'm actually going to be putting in moss instead of soil. Mat of moss over here. I just like poured a bunch of water on this before I started filming, thinking I was gonna have to drain it a lot, but it actually feels really good. Like, I think I nailed the amount of water I'm supposed to put in there. But yeah, I just mixed up water with just like a tiny bit of CalMag. Anyway, and I'm going to pot them up in these ones. They're kind of really thin and they're great with moss. So I'm going to use that. One fun thing that came out of the interview that I thought like would have gotten more attention if they hadn't brought up all this other stuff is that they actually got married 3 days before their wedding ceremony on TV. Like, that's kind of cool. I know some people would probably be like, oh, that's, you know, I don't know. I guess some people might not like that. But, like, how romantic is that? They're like, you know, this is the one for the world and this is the one for us. Like, oh, so cute. Yeah, I thought that was adorable and honestly kind of a testament to their love for each other. Like that, the royal family does not have a good history of healthy marriages, let's just put it that way. So the fact that this one has a potential to actually be a healthy marriage at the end of the day is like, I hope for their sake. Another big headline after the interview came out was talking about how Meghan herself said that she was suicidal. She was pregnant with Archie at the time when all this happened. I know that from what I've heard from people that being pregnant in general is very emotionally taxing. Women are susceptible to thoughts like that. You know, having suicidal thoughts while you're pregnant is not unheard of, just generally speaking. Doctors are acutely aware of this and will treat for it and look for it. So the fact that this happened to her is not completely unheard of. But I do think, and I'm going to bring her up again, that it harkens back to what happened to Diana. Diana had a very famous interview where she admitted that she was suicidal for a long time, both when she was pregnant with William and after, and I think when she was also pregnant with Harry, I can't recall. She said that she threw herself down the stairs and that she attempted suicide at other points as well. Basically cries for help. Like, my more cynical and, you know, analytic side of my brain is like, okay, well, this was in the early 80s. You know, back then we weren't as aware of all of the effects of depression and suicide that we do now, and so maybe at the time they just didn't know what to do when she was dealing with all of this, and they just like chalked it up to her being crazy. Like, as bad as that is, they didn't know how to respond to it. But I also feel like when you don't know how to respond to something, maybe like call professionals. You have the money, might as well call professionals, right? The same thing happened to Meghan, and she actually asked for help. Between their situations is one, Meghan was in her 30s when she married into this family, and Diana was 20 years old. 20. Imagine being 20 and being thrust into an environment like this. I can't imagine. But Meghan was older. She had an established career. She had made plenty of money in said career. She was confident. She's strong. She knows who she is. And this same thing happened to her. And when I say that, I don't mean that to say that she's not those things. You can be those things and still suffer with depression. But I think a key component to triggering this is being part of that family and the isolation and all of that. I can't remember if she said it at this point or later in the interview. It was something that had never ever occurred to me. So let's say you're depressed, you're part of the royal family, you ask for help and they tell you no, which is what happened to her. They told her like, oh, that's not a good look, so we're not going to do anything about it. And in my mind, I'm like, okay, if you don't want her checking herself in to any sort of like institution, what have you, like, I understand like that could maybe be bad optically. What I don't understand is you've got a big old giant house. You have country houses, you have all this stuff. why not send a doctor to her? You have the money. Hire somebody to just like meet with her once a day. Have a nurse stay with her and like be able to talk to her about her feelings and all of that kind of stuff. Get her medication. All of these things. Why can't you bring them to her? Like, you know what's bad press is having a pregnant royal kill themselves. That's bad press. Oh, I'm so mad about all of this. It's just how someone with all the resources in the world at their disposal, all of the information at their disposal, and not know what to do in this scenario to help her. You know what the kicker is? All of the family members have like the topics that they focus on. William and Kate's topic is mental health and suicide prevention. Great job, guys. Just great job. Not that they're the ones making the decisions or anything. I'm sure the institution is the one making those decisions. But still, like, ugh, what a bad look. So that's part of it. That's one part that just frustrates me to no end. That clearly they didn't learn from Diana, and they couldn't just bring a doctor, a professional, a psychologist, a psychiatrist, whatever it takes, just bring them to her. Bring them to her. Let's stop the cycle of like this neglect and abuse that every woman who marries into this family feels. And if you're like, oh, Meghan's the exception, she, like, nobody else has been like this, Diana would never. It's like, all of the bad press coming out saying that she's like a big bully and she made Kate cry, all this stuff, the same stuff came out about Diana. Same exact stuff. Now, granted, Diana wasn't a saint. She had her issues. She was very manipulative, all that kind of stuff. But all of these people are manipulative. Every single one of them. The Queen's manipulative, Charles is manipulative, William's manipulative, Kate's manipulative, Harry's manipulative. They all are. So saying like, oh, well, she's manipulative, it's like, they all are. Their entire life is press, which is like the only reason they live and also the only reason and the only thing they fear. I'm sure there's a million other things that I could talk about from this interview. When I say I was angry for most of the interview, I was angry. Not because I was shocked, but because it's like, it's happening again. And I'm honestly happy that they left. They were able to leave because Diana Spencer had left her children a nice hefty sum of money. Plus, everyone loves to call Meghan a money grubbing whatever, but it's just like, she made a ton of money on her show, and she probably has a nice nest egg as well. Oh, one thing that she mentioned, like just briefly, like barely even mentioned it, that really perked my ears up, and I was like, holy cow. She said that she physically could not leave unless it was approved by the institution. When I hear that, or when people hear that, sometimes you can be like, well, yeah, she can just hire a car and leave or whatever. Call yourself an Uber, like whatever. But she said when she became a member of the family and was living at the house before they got married, they took her passport. They took her driver's license. They took her credit cards. They took her identification. They took everything that she would need in order to get anywhere. You know, if you want to go to a store, if you want to get lunch with your friends, if you want to fly out and see your mother, the only way you could do that is if you had identification so you could drive, money so that you could hire a cab, or, you know, a passport so you could fly out of the country. You need those things in order to function in society, at least like in her case, you would need those things to function. And she did not have access to those. You know, she didn't have her own car. She didn't have keys to those cars, because even if she had a car, she would still probably have to get the keys from somebody who worked in the institution. Even if she was like, you know what, I feel suicidal, I need to see a doctor whether you want me to or not, I am just going to go and I am going to see a doctor, seek help for myself. She literally couldn't. If they decided that she was not allowed to, she was not allowed to. And they would basically talk her out of whatever she probably wanted. At least that's how I imagine it. All right, let's take a look at this and see if there's anything I can easily pull out of here. So in here, I basically have some Cebu Blue over here. I've got some Scindapsus pictus aureus in the middle. And then over here I have some Monstera Peru Albo. And they are just barely, you can see some little leaves and things like that coming up. They are so slow to grow, man. Whereas these are like blowing up and need to get taken out of here. Because ultimately what my goal is to take most of this and use it in trades so that hopefully I can get more plants and not pay money for them because I am on a strict budget this year. And when I tell you there are roots everywhere, there are roots everywhere. I think next time I'm not going to pack them quite so tight because, lordy, they go everywhere. You know what, this seems way too difficult. So grow faster, little guys. Ooh, this is a little one that is not growing any roots at all. So let's re-nuzzle her in there and hopefully she grows. So I'd say those were the main takeaways from the interview. It may seem like I'm a huge like Meghan and Harry stan or whatever. Like, they're rich celebrities at the end of the day. Are they great people? I don't know. Probably not. They might be fun in small doses, which is kind of what they're designed for as people. They're basically there for short introductions and quick conversation and then go on their way. But, you know, they mentioned in the interview they tried to get the institution and the family to support them and defend them against all of the attacks of the press, the racist attacks, the just over-the-top unnecessary ribbing on Meghan for existing and breathing. If this was in a bubble and it was just Meghan and Harry and everyone else was cool and they were just the ones that were causing drama, like, maybe I would agree with the family, but it's not in isolation. They've got Harry and Meghan, who at their worst are just like mean to staff, which is not great, but aristocracy. That is like the worst thing that they could lob at them. You've got William and Kate, who seem to be fine, but there are all those rumors about William cheating on her with the Rose what's-her-face. They wanted to cover that story up, of course. They didn't want the story of like William is his father 2.0, which, by the way, Charles did not come off looking great in this interview at all. When Harry was reaching out for help before they decided to finally leave, or when they were deciding to leave, but before they had actually sent the official letter in, Harry said Charles stopped taking his calls. Like, could you imagine, and maybe you can, and I'm just insanely lucky, and I honestly, I probably am insanely lucky. If I was concerned about my well-being and was calling my father, and he chose not to pick up repeatedly and was screening my phone calls because he didn't want to deal with my problems and saw them as my problems. If I was going through something, or my partner or my spouse was going through something that my dad could help with, and I called just to talk about it and to get his advice, and he was not picking up the phone, if he was screening my phone calls, that would devastate me. And it's the same thing that I kind of touched on earlier. All of these people seem so incredibly self-absorbed and just in it for themselves that it does not surprise me necessarily that they would be this way. It still hurts to hear, because even though these are rich people in castles, there's still a human element there that is just staggeringly weird to me, that this is a problem. You know, they kept saying that they were never going to give a title to your son and they're going to take away your security. The optics of taking security away from the people of color in your family, who are probably going to be targeted more than anybody else. Well, maybe not anybody else, but like they're going to be targeted more than most. I went on a little rampage there and got distracted from the point. So I was saying, you know, they might be bad, but like William's also bad. Charles is also bad. Remember what he did to Diana. Remember that he was like 34 and married a 20-year-old and treated her like garbage and cheated on her constantly, like that. And then you've also got Prince Andrew, who's a pedophile. And they are hiding him. They are protecting him. And Andrew's still on the payroll. Andrew still has security. And he's a literal criminal. And a bad criminal at that. This isn't like I stole a candy bar from, the local store. He's a pedophile. And they're protecting Andrew over Harry and Meghan and Archie. Andrew's like number 14 in line for the throne at this point. Harry is 6. Archie is 7. Like, what are their priorities? Nothing makes sense to me. And from, all reports that I've heard or discussed or in interviews and all that stuff, supposedly Harry's like one of the Queen's favorite people. Like, she loves him to death. So the fact that she could treat him like this and just be like, like, it hurts. You're basically kicked out of the family. They said that they both tried individually, like separately, and then together to try and get some relief from the institution, saying, please correct some of these stories. A bunch of things have been written about us. Please make a statement saying that that is not the case, and they wouldn't do it. They're like, just deal with it. I think it's easy to say that they should just deal with it and it's their job. Honestly, I don't think any of us would be able to handle it very well. And having money is not the same thing as, loving yourself. The same people who are defending the monarchy, they confuse me. It's one thing if you're not like the biggest Harry and Meghan fan, fair enough, but like, you're defending the monarchy? That's where you're going with this? You're going to defend the people who are racist? And these same people, I bet, would have said the same thing about, Robin Williams, would have said the same thing about Anthony Bourdain or Kate Spade, like, quit complaining, quit whining, you have money, you have success, you have fame, like, just deal with it. But at the end of the day, that does not preclude you from having mental health issues. That does not preclude you from suffering at the hands of the press. Those 3 people were insanely successful, the top of their game, tens of millions of dollars, if not more. And those people all took their life. They all took their life. And no one would ever claim that those 3 people are weak. Wealth, success, and attention doesn't preclude you from mental health problems. And they can hit anybody at any time, anywhere. And I'll end this by saying, if you've ever dealt with mental health issues, if you've ever thought of suicide or someone has, please get help. I will make sure to put the suicide prevention hotline number right here and then also in the description. I'll see if I can find it for places other than the US, because I know a good portion of my audience is not in the US. I think they made the best choice for them. I do think they're happier, and they're going to have some podcasts and some Netflix deals and stuff like that. Like, they're going to be fine. It's hilarious the people who will shit on them for leaving the monarchy, for paying everything back, for not getting money from the Commonwealth or from the UK government anymore, however that works, and then also shit on them for making their own money. Just, pfft. These people can't fucking win with them, I swear. Like, they're so money grubbing, they left one of the richest monarchies in the world. All of these deals that they're doing now, that is so they can make money and not have to rely on the British royal family anymore. So therefore, that's good, right? No, of course not, because they're money-grabbing, attention-seeking whores. Make up your mind, because you make no sense to me. But yeah, I'm glad they're happier. I'm glad they're healthier. I'm glad that their family's growing and they seem to be doing okay. I'm glad they brought some light to how this institution works and how horrifying it is and how debilitating it can be to people. Honestly, like, it's not for me to say because I'm an American. I've spent a good amount of time in the UK, but I certainly would not claim it as like a homeland or a second country or anything. I do see that when the Queen dies, which is any day now, she's like in her mid-90s, as soon as she passes, I really, really see the monarchy shrinking under Charles or William or whoever takes over. I'm sorry, but Charles is not popular. He is probably the least popular royal for a reason. I would even say Camilla is ranked higher than Charles. He really just reeks of like whiny little pissant to me, but that's a different story. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed my little analysis, rant, what have you. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.